This is the state of Kentucky in the United States. It's famous for its massive underground systems, including the world-famous Mammoth Cave. But back in the 1920s, the locals were engaged in a fierce competition for tourism dollars, a time known as the Cave Wars. The problem was, the main entrance to the Mammoth Cave was far from the highway, so local explorers were desperate. They needed to find a new cave, one that is closer to the road, to catch more visitors. Enter a man named Floyd Collins. Floyd was a skilled caver. He grew up exploring the dark tunnels right beneath his family's farm. But Floyd was looking for a business opportunity. He wanted a lucrative attraction to help his family, so he focused on a dangerous spot called Sand Cave. The location was perfect. It was close to the highway, right on a farm owned by a guy named Bidoyle. Now, back in those days, the law was simple. If you owned the land on the surface, you owned the cave underneath it. So Floyd made a deal with Bidoyle. If Floyd explored the cave and turned it into an attraction, they would split the profits. On January 30, 1925, Floyd enters the narrow passage alone. He has nothing but a kerosene lantern for light. Now, Sand Cave was not a big open cavern. It was a breakdown cave, just shifting rocks and tight squeezes. Floyd crawls down this twisting channel for about 55 feet until he hits a large chamber. He hoped this would be the new attraction. Satisfied, he begins the difficult climb back to the surface. But then, disaster struck. He's squeezing through a tight crawlway. He pushes his body upward toward the exit, and his foot kicks a loose rock, a 27-pound rock. It falls and wedges his left ankle against the floor. Floyd is trapped. He is in a dark, freezing tunnel, and he cannot reach the rock to move it. The next day, Floyd does not come home. His neighbors go to the cave, and they see his coat hanging outside. They crawl into the darkness and they find him. He is conscious, but he absolutely cannot free himself. The rescuers were facing a nightmare. The tunnel was too narrow. They had to crawl headfirst. They could reach Floyd's face, but they could not get to his trapped foot. His brother, Homer, tried everything to save him. They brought him food. They tried to keep him warm with burlap sacks. By February 2nd, a reporter arrives. A small guy named William Skeets Miller. Because he was small, Skeets could crawl deeper than others. He spent hours clearing dirt from around Floyd's body and becoming his main connection to the outside world. Miller's reports were telegraphed across the country, and suddenly, this was not just a rescue, it was the first modern media event in the United States. Because of the radio broadcasts and daily newspaper updates, thousands of tourists gathered in the field above the cave. The scene turned into a chaotic carnival. People were selling food, selling moonshine, partying just feet above where a man was slowly dying. Inside the cave, it was desperate. Rescuers tried using a jack to lift the rock, but it slipped in the mud. They even tried to pull Floyd out by force using a harness, but the pain was so intense. Floyd begged them to stop. He was terrified they would pull him apart. On February 4th, the weather turns against them. Heavy rain causes the cave ceiling to collapse. The tunnel is blocked. Floyd is now separated from his rescuers. He is trapped alone in the dark without food, heat, or contact. The engineers realized the tunnel was too dangerous to enter, so they decide to dig a vertical shaft straight down from the surface. They thought it would take around 30 hours, but the ground was solid stone. Miners in the National Guard worked around the clock, but it was agonizingly slow. Finally, on February 16, 18 days after he entered the cave, they broke through. They pointed their lights into the chamber, hoping for a miracle, but Floyd Collins was gone. Doctors estimated he had died of exposure and exhaustion, likely around February 13. Because the rock was still pinning his leg and the walls were unstable, the family made a hard choice. They left his body in the cave. They filled the shaft with debris and sealed the entrance. Sand Cave became his tomb. Though they recovered his body 2 months later, the tragedy of 1925 remains one of the history's most heartbreaking stories.